My ex-boyfriend was a struggling artist. He painted day and night, selling his art from a stall, also we could get married sooner. But when he finally bought a diamond ring and proposed, I left him. 3 years later, Ethan, the young master of the Shin family who had been missing for a long time, returned to the country. My father sent me to him to curry favor. Only then did I realize he was the ex-boyfriend I had abandoned. I smiled and greeted him, only to have his fiancée splash wine all over my face. Everyone was laughing at me, ridiculing my delusion of replacing the one Ethan always cherished. But they didn't know that the one he always cherished, who lived in his heart, was actually me. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Even with all my imagination, I never would have thought I'd reunite with my ex-boyfriend in such a setting. Back then, he was called Ethan, a struggling artist living in a basement. Now, he is called Ethan, the sole heir of the Shin family, standing at the very pinnacle of society. As soon as Ethan and his fiancée entered, they captivated the attention of every guest present. Of course, his striking appearance alone was remarkable. What's more, this banquet was specially held by the Shin family to welcome his return. And then there was his fiancée, Sophia, by his side, stunningly beautiful in a red evening gown that contrasted exquisitely with her fair skin. Standing together, they were a perfect match. In contrast, my simple, innocent flower attire seemed modest and rather plain. Yet, my father, Robert, refused to give up. He gripped the back of my neck, his voice laced with menace, "Go say hello. Don't forget, this is your last chance." Looking at his cloudy eyes, I almost forgot his purpose in bringing me to this banquet. He hoped to secure a marriage alliance with the Shin family through me. I gazed at his tall, slender figure not far away. A gentle smile yet on his lips as he exchanged pleasantries with those who came to greet him. That smile was very familiar to me. When he used to sell his art from a stall, he wore that same smile when facing admiring girls, seemingly warm, yet actually distant. Our breakup was quite casual, actually. At the time, while he was out selling his art, I left a sticky note that read, "It was just a game. Taking it seriously makes it boring. I'm leaving. Bye." Underneath the sticky note was the diamond ring he had worked so hard to save up for by painting. It was a tiny stone, incomparable to the massive diamond on Sophia's finger. I walked up to him with a wine glass, extended my hand, and smiled with extreme politeness. "Ethan, hello. My name is Luna." He cast a cold glance at my outstretched hand, then lifted his gaze to me, utterly unmoved. I awkwardly withdrew my hand, preparing to leave, when Sophia spoke. She said icily, "Luna? You've got quite a nerve." With that, she splashed a glass of wine into my face. Two having wine splashed on me quickly drew the stares of onlookers. The reason was simple, I was already a laughingstock in the entire upper-class circle, having brought endless shame upon my father, Robert. Every time he introduced me to a young heir, I would tell them that I was actually Robert's illegitimate daughter and not fit for polite society. Over time, this became a topic of gossip in the circle, and, after one failed marriage alliance after another, had run out of patience. That's why he said this was my last chance. Unfortunately, this attempt also failed, and in a way that utterly humiliated him. The red wine had turned my pristine white satin evening gown into a joke. I tried my best to ignore the mocking stares, intending to leave. But I hadn't taken 2 steps before Ethan's voice rang out behind me. His voice, devoid of its former tenderness, was eerily unfamiliar. "Wait a moment." He walked in front of me and took the wine glass from my hand. The cold touch of his fingertips sent a shiver through me. His eyes showed no emotion as he looked at me. He said, "You upset my fiancée. I don't want to see you at another Shin event again." The mocking stares of the crowd turned into whispers. How embarrassing. A cheap piece of goods, offering herself up. What kind of quality could an illegitimate daughter be? Just like her mother, wanting to marry into a wealthy family. She should take a look in the mirror. In truth, this was exactly what I wanted. I didn't want any further connection with him. It was just that I had shamed Robert yet again, and he was furious. So this time, unable to wait until we got home, he slapped me in the returning car. Useless trash. Once we arrived at the family residence, he couldn't hold back anymore and slapped me hard twice more. The familiar taste of rust filled my mouth. "Damn it, you've utterly shamed our family." He punished me by making me kneel in the living room all night. The servants of the family residence were already accustomed to this. They ignored me kneeling there, and once they finished their tasks, they dispersed. Kyle stumbled back into the living room, drunk, having been out God knows where. Seeing me kneeling there, he sneered, playing the victim and getting punished by dad again, huh? With that, he went upstairs by himself. In the middle of the night, the cold moonlight streamed through the courtyard and into the living room. It couldn't help but remind me of when I was 13, kneeling like this outside the family residence's gate, begging Robert to save my mother. My mother had been adamantly against me seeking his help. Years ago, Robert had climbed the social ladder by marrying the Fu family's heiress, abandoning us. She said she would rather die than accept charity from Robert. But what could I do? Without money, the hospital had stopped her treatment. What could be more important than life itself? I couldn't lose the only family I had in this world. I knelt outside the family residence's gate for a day and a night. It wasn't until the next morning, when Robert saw my face from his car, that he finally acknowledged me. After much consideration, he agreed to cover my mother's medical expenses. The condition was that I return to the family residence and be obedient to him from then on. Unfortunately, it was too late. Although the doctors tried their best to save her, my mother's brain had suffered irreversible damage. The doctors said her intelligence was like that of a 3-year-old child. Now, the cold moonlight shone into the living room, and silence enveloped the surroundings. I waited until no one else would appear, then took out the USB drive from my handbag. I placed it in my palm and gripped it tightly. Tonight's moonlight was very similar to that night when I was 13. I wondered if it was a sign that everything was about to end. My attendance at the Shin family's banquet actually had another purpose. Robert was bidding on a resort project, and the USB drive in my hand contained the bidding documents for the Sioux. The corporation had been losing money for years and would soon be unable to sustain itself. Robert was banking on winning this bid to turn his fortunes around. I wanted to find an opportunity at the banquet to discreetly slip the USB drive into the pocket of Jason, Sue's competitor. Unfortunately, my plan was disrupted by Ethan's sudden appearance. I had originally thought I'd have to find another opportunity, but unexpectedly, it was Jason who reached out to me first. I looked at the message from an unknown number. Heard you were looking for me at the banquet that night? Regretting it? He then sent me a location. I'll give you a chance. Meet me here. I didn't hesitate. Time was already running out. I just needed to put the USB drive, labeled with the Sioux's name, into his pocket. That wasn't difficult. But I didn't expect him to be alone in the private room. There were others, including Ethan. It turned out this was a welcome party for Ethan, hosted by the second-generation rich in the circle. And I was part of their game. They were betting on whether I'd show up. The moment I walked in, everyone inside laughed. Damn, she actually came. Jason, congratulations on winning the beauty. A bet's a bet. They all placed their money in front of Jason. Only, dressed entirely in black, sat alone on a sofa, radiating a gloom I had never seen in him before. Jason looked triumphant. He thought I was there to respond to his ridiculous proposition. Robert had once arranged a blind date between us, and as usual, I told him I was an illegitimate daughter. I had expected him to make an excuse and leave, just like the others. But to my surprise, he proposed I become his mistress. He said he could give me anything I wanted, except marriage. Now, with a smug look on his face, he waved me over. Come here. Thought you were so virtuous, but you still showed up in the end, didn't you? Jason patted the seat beside him, motioning for me to sit down. Ethan kept staring at me, his dark pupils revealing no emotion, yet it sent shivers down my spine. I had no intention of going over. I just wanted to give the USB drive to Jason and leave quickly, so I also waved him over. You come here. Jason chuckled, looking down, and swaggered over to me. Shy? You're not here for your dad's project, are you? Don't worry, if you make me happy tonight, I'll agree to anything. I let out an angry laugh, finally unable to hold back. Idiot. This was completely out of character for the demure image I had painstakingly maintained. Jason froze for a moment, then his expression slowly contorted. What the hell did you say? He raised his hand, ready to strike. But his wrist was suddenly gripped firmly. Ethan stood in front of me, blocking my view. I looked at his familiar back and heard him say, "Get out." I turned and walked away, no longer intending to give him the USB drive. Anyway, there were many her ways to sabotage the Sioux's bid. But before I even reached the elevator, Ethan chased after me. He grabbed my hand. I wasn't talking about you just now. Honestly, at this point, I didn't care if he was talking about me or not, because I had more pressing matters to attend to. I pulled my hand free from his. It wouldn't look good if your fiancé saw you like this. He didn't speak, just looked down at my face and asked in a low voice, "Who hit you?" It was then that I remembered. Although the swelling on my face had gone down, if one looked closely, the faint palm print was still visible. But what business was it of his? Ignoring him, I walked straight to the main entrance, where his driver was already waiting. "I'll take you home." 5 I didn't get in, but he had the car follow me anyway. Until impatient honking sounded from behind. I knew his temperament, he wasn't one to give up easily. Seeing me stop, he immediately opened the car door. The atmosphere in the car was heavy, something that had never happened before. In the past, when Ethan was still Ethan, and I was still Luna, we were always so happy, with endless things to talk about every day. Back then, every day after class, I would accompany him to sell his paintings at a stall. After packing up the stall, we'd return to his tiny basement room and sit on the bed, counting how much money we'd made that day. Sometimes we earned very little, so we'd huddle together in his room and cook instant ramen. Other times, we'd earn a good amount, and we'd hug each other, laughing. He would hold me then and say, "Luna, trust me, I won't let you live in a basement forever." Back then, I was so happy that I always said, "It doesn't matter if we live in a basement, as long as I'm with you." I cherished his purity, simplicity, and goodness, but at the same time, I dreaded the arrival of a certain day. Finally, as graduation approached, Robert sent me a message, telling me to come back. He had sent me to study abroad merely to get me a respectable degree, to enhance my value for a marriage alliance. He also sent me a video of my mother. In the video, my mother stared blankly at the camera, giggling, drooling, and constantly calling out, "Luna." Robert was certain I wouldn't abandon my mother. That was why he felt secure sending me abroad to gild the lily. He had indeed got a hold of me, making even the feeling of happiness seem like a sin. My dream ended, and I had no choice but to return to reality. That night, I stared at Ethan's sleeping profile for a long time. He was very talented, achieving his dreams was only a matter of time. His world was simple and pure. We were fundamentally people from two different worlds. And if Robert knew I was with a poor art student, he would definitely not let him off the hook. We had no future, so I decided to leave. To return to the hell I both feared and loathed. In these 3 years, I had fantasized more than once. Perhaps when everything was over, I could go find him, regardless of whether he'd still be in the same place. But before I could go find him, he came back first, with a fiancée. And he was no longer the struggling artist, he had become the heir of the Shin. Now, sitting in this globally limited Maybach, I felt like a joke. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Sometimes, how could a missed opportunity not be a form of destiny? 6 Back in reality, I was the illegitimate daughter everyone scorned, while he had become the unattainable Ethan. He asked me why I had left back then. I feigned surprise. I thought I'd made it very clear on the sticky note. Then I sighed again. "It would have been so much better if you'd told me you were Ethan back then. I definitely wouldn't have left, I would have clung to you fiercely. Now, you have a fiancé. Whatever is said is too late." I tried to sound as flippant as possible, because I knew he detested such talk. Ethan looked at me for a long moment before asking, "Are you Luna, or Luna?" I retort, "Then are you Ethan or Ethan?" The car stopped at the gate of the family residence's villa. I was a little surprised, he knew where I lived. As I got out of the car, I said, "Don't look for me again. You know my father, right? It wouldn't be good if he got involved, he'd ruin your reputation." He said in a low voice, "I won't be here much longer. I probably won't come back after this, so we won't see each other again." I paused, then offered a shallow smile and wished him well. But he suddenly grabbed my hand. "If I wasn't engaged, would you be willing to leave with me?" I turned back to him and smiled. "I am Luna, not Luna. Luna can't go with you." 7 I went to the nursing home to see my mother. As usual, I washed her hair and blew it dry. While wiping her body, she began to cry and fuss, splashing all the water from the basin onto me, and leaving several scratches on my arm with her nails. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "When I'm not around, you still call out Luna. Now that I'm right here beside you, you stop calling my name." "Mom, I'm Luna, Luna. You're the one who gave me that name," she whispered after me, "Luna." I held her soft body as I used to when I was a child, nestling into her embrace. "Mom, just wait a little longer. I'll succeed soon. Once everything is over, we'll leave." She stroked my hair with her hand. "Luna." Robert's patience with me had reached its limit. Thanks to Jason's extensive spreading of rumors, my reputation in high society had worsened considerably. He claimed that I had tried to sleep with him for the family residence's resort project. Robert, seeing that his planned marriage alliance with a wealthy family was hopeless, no longer arranged blind dates for me. I knew very well that, given the critical importance of this resort project to the family residence, he would definitely make a move. So when he brought me before a balding, pot-bellied middle-aged man, I wasn't surprised at all. He smiled as he introduced me. This is Uncle. He's the evaluation expert for this resort project. You need to keep him company properly. I inwardly chuckled. Wasn't this a stroke of luck? However, I had underestimated Robert's shamelessness and depravity. He drugged my drink, and as I started to feel drowsy, he quietly slipped away. I smashed the wine bottle, cut my palm to stay conscious, and at the same time, fiercely slashed the man who lunged at me several times across his face and body. I stumbled out of the private room. Blood stained my white shirt red, and I still clutched the broken glass shards tightly in my hand. I figured I must look terrifying, which was why the people in the hallway were scattering. Escaping the private club, I collapsed by the roadside. Trembling, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. It was strange, there was no one I could call. Finally, my gaze rested on the number I had always kept saved. I didn't know if he had changed his number, or if he would even answer. But in this world, I seemed to have no one left I could trust. The call connected. Strangely, the once incredibly familiar ringtone sounded not far from me. I looked up and saw a blurry, dark figure running towards me. Hello? Ethan's voice, breathless, came through the phone. He called out, Luna. I could no longer tell if this was an illusion or reality. I just saw the dark figure getting closer and closer. I couldn't hold on any longer. I managed to say just one thing, good thing you didn't change your number, before I passed out. 8 When I woke again, I found myself lying on a soft, large bed. My mouth was parched, and I felt utterly drained. The young nurse attending beside me looked delighted when she saw I was awake. She brought water to me, telling me I was safe now and that this was Ethan's bedroom. My hand was wrapped in thick gauze, I had an 4 drip, and my clothes had been changed. Seeing me look down, examining the pajamas I was wearing, the nurse smiled and said, Don't worry, I changed them for you. How are you feeling now? The drug in your system should be mostly gone. Just finish this last bottle of 4 fluid, and you'll be fine. She chattered on, you slept for a day and a night. Ethan was very worried. If it weren't for urgent matters he had to handle, he would have stayed here with you. Wait a moment, I'll go contact him. I gripped her hand, my voice hoarse. Wait, how long did you say I slept? A day and a night. An ominous premonition surged within me. I immediately called the nursing home. Sure enough, they informed me that my guardian had completed the discharge procedures and taken my mother away. Knowing, I knew he wouldn't let this go easily. I pulled out the 4 needle and rushed out of the room. Only the young nurse was left anxiously calling after me. Hey, the 4 isn't finished yet, miss, where are you going? 9 Upon returning to the family residence, it seemed Robert had been waiting there for a long time. He sat on the sofa, composed and unhurried, looking at me with a cold sneer. So, you decided to come back? Then he noticed the pajamas I was wearing and frowned. I didn't answer, only asked him, where did you take my mother? She can't handle shocks. He stood up and walked over to me, gripping my chin. His cloudy eyes held a malevolent glint. Where were you last night? Who did you sleep with? I asked him again, where did you take my mother? He said, Robert, can't have raised you for all these years for nothing. You want your mother? Fine, what will you exchange for her? Seeing my silence, he changed his tone. I heard from the servants that the Shin family's young master brought you back that day. Were you with him last night too? He released me, his eyes narrowing slightly. Coincidentally, I'd just received news that the Shin family has intervened in this bid. I won't dwell on what happened before. Anyway, that evaluation expert is finished. My dear daughter, if you can help me secure this resort project, I'll let you and your mother leave. How about it? I knew Robert very well. He wasn't a man of his word. He would say anything to achieve his goals. At that moment, I saw the knife on the coffee table. The thought of killing him grew stronger and stronger. If he didn't tell me where my mother was, I'd stab a hole in him and keep stabbing until he spoke. However, before I could act, Kyle came rushing down the stairs excitedly. Dad, look what I found in that bitch's room. What he held up in his hand was the USB drive. He had pried open the safe where I had hidden it. Kyle was as excited as if he had discovered a new continent. Dad, I looked. It contains our Sue's bidding documents for this project. And these files, Dad, all those confidential documents our company leaked before? This bitch did it. Dad, she wants to bring down our family. You ungrateful, treacherous whore. Robert's eyes were bloodshot. He raised his hand, intending to strike me. This time, I dodged. I rushed to the coffee table and grabbed the knife. Kyle's face was filled with panic. What are you trying to do? I gave him a cold sneer. With a good-for-nothing like you, even without me, the Sioux would eventually collapse in your hands. Kyle, just like when he was a child, complained to Robert, Dad, look at her, she's cursing at me. Seeing me approach him with the knife, he panicked and scurried upstairs without a backward glance. In the past, no matter how Robert punished me, he would never leave marks on my body. In his eyes, I was a commodity to be sold at a good price, any flaw would decrease my value. But now, he no longer had such concerns. So when the golf club struck me, I felt a tearing pain throughout my body. I lunged forward, intending to stab him. He swung the club down hard on my arm, and it instantly went numb. The knife fell to the ground. He seemed to be enjoying the beating, or perhaps he had wanted to do this for a long time. He rolled up his sleeves, panting. Today I'll beat you, you bitch, to death, and then I'll deal with your wretched mother. However, before the raised club could come down, the large French windows in the living room shattered completely. Several men in black suits swarmed in, quickly surrounding the living room. I saw Ethan walk in, stepping over the broken glass. He saw me lying on the floor, and an intensity one had never seen before appeared on his face. He walked over, picked me up, and gently placed me on the sofa. I couldn't care about anything else. I just clutched his collar, my voice trembling, Ethan, my mother is gone. Ethan took the golf club from a bodyguard and struck Robert fiercely across the back. Robert let out a muffled groan and collapsed to his knees on the floor. The entire family residence was being trashed, the servants had long vanished. Kyle was dragged down from upstairs, kneeling beside Ethan and begging for mercy. I stared, dumbfounded, at Ethan's face, which appeared grim in the shadows, and the veins bulging on his arms. It turned out that even the pure and wonderful young man I knew could possess such a violent side. 11 Robert revealed my mother's location. My mother was found. But what they brought back was her body. The person responsible for guarding her knelt on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. He claimed it wasn't his fault, that my mother had committed suicide. She had slit her wrist with a piece of broken porcelain, and blood had pooled on the floor. By the time she was discovered, she had long since passed away. Hearing his account, I vaguely remembered that day when I leaned in her arms, and she had stroked my hair and called out Luna. She had softly said, "It's all Mom's fault for harming you." Only at that moment, I thought it was my imagination. I lost consciousness. Before I passed out, I saw Ethan's panicked face. He held me, calling my name, Luna. This time I was certain it wasn't my imagination. Because his hand was as warm as it used to be, and his worried expression was exactly the same as before. I woke up in Ethan's room. This time, he was right beside me, holding my hand tightly as he kept watch. We sat in silence, looking at each other. After a long pause, he finally spoke, "Luna, did I come back too late?" No, whether he was Ethan or Ethan, it actually had nothing to do with him. I held my mother's funeral alone. In the vast memorial hall, I was the only one. The photo I chose for her was from before she got sick. In it, she smiled so gently. Looking at that photo, I remembered my childhood. The sweaters she knitted by hand, the bedtime stories every night, the amusement park we visited every holiday. She gave me a childhood full of love and happiness. Perhaps it's because I once had it that losing it feels so painful, that I can't forget. All this time, I had been holding on to her tightly. I went to Robert against her wishes, using the money of the man she hated most to treat her illness. I wondered if she resented me when she passed away. She once said, "Luna, Mom gave birth to you because I loved you, it had nothing to do with anyone else." I think she chose to leave to give me her final act of love. Tears streamed down my face. I hadn't cried in a long time. Even when Robert beat me so severely, I hadn't shed a single tear. Ethan walked in and silently sat beside me. He said, "I once lost someone very precious to me. At that time, it felt like my world had fallen apart, and life had lost all meaning. And guess how I got through it?" I didn't answer. He looked at me, speaking earnestly. "Because I met you. You made me feel like this unremarkable life still held some hope. Luna, if you're willing, you can use me." In truth, I didn't even know what I could do now. Because the world I had always protected had collapsed. 12 after that night, Robert was hospitalized. Facing the Shin family, he dared not speak his anger. I had blocked him and no longer had any contact with him. Nah. Too early, the Sioux didn't win the bid for the resort project. News of the Sioux's financial deficit had spread throughout the upper-class circle, and people began selling off their shares. Its collapse was only a matter of time. I waited quietly. waiting to deliver the final blow to Robert. Unexpectedly, before the suit collapsed, Jason found me first. He knelt before me, begging for my help. He said Ethan had taken all their family's business, and the Chen family was on the verge of bankruptcy. He said, "Luna, please talk to Ethan for me. It's just a word from you." I found it amusing. "What does that have to do with me?" He pleaded with a long face. "If you had told me about your connection with him earlier, I never would have provoked you. You're overthinking it. I have no connection with him." He grew anxious. "Luna, we at least shared a meal together. Can you really stand by and watch me be ruined?" I smiled. "Then start over properly. Your father could do it, and I believe you can too." 13 An employee from the art gallery called me, saying my brother had gone there to cause trouble, yelling that he wanted to sell the place. This art gallery was entrusted to me by Robert to manage after I returned from studying abroad. It was the social status he bestowed upon me to achieve his vision of a marriage alliance with a wealthy family. Compared to the Sue's other businesses, this was an insignificant art gallery, which he didn't care about at all. So he naturally didn't know that, after several years of management, I had made it independent from the Sue, making it my own property. Kyle had no right to sell it. So I had the security guards escort him out. I had always known about his gambling addiction. Before, with the Sue as his backing, creditors still showed him some deference. Now that his backing was about to collapse, creditors were swarming him, and he had been pushed to the brink. He saw me and burst into tears, weeping profusely. He said, "Sis, our family is finished. I know you have money, please help me." Seeing me watch him coldly without speaking, he quickly added, "Just consider it a loan from you, 50 million. I'll pay you back when I make my comeback someday." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He and Robert were truly father and son. They could spin empty promises without batting an eye. "Even if you don't have it, doesn't my brother-in-law? He's the young master of the Shin family. Go find him and ask him to help me." I decided to make him face reality. "First, I'm not your sister. Second, there's no brother-in-law." He widened his eyes. "How are you not my sister? Didn't we both have the same father? And didn't my brother-in-law come to save you that day?" I lost my patience. Fortunately, the creditors also arrived. I watched coldly as they dragged the screaming Kyle into the dark-colored van and drove away. As expected, he would never appear before me again. 14 I hadn't expected Sophia to come to my art gallery. She wore a lotus root pink long dress, looking as elegant and beautiful as ever. Her back was to me, as she quietly admired a painting. I walked over and told her the painting cost 120,000, and if she was serious about buying it, I'd give her a discount. She tisked. "I'm about to leave, taking a painting with me would be awkward." Then she looked at me. Ethan only grew in height, not in brains. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I came. "Before I leave, I want to clear up some misunderstandings." She said she wasn't Ethan's fiancée, she had only agreed to act the part with Ethan. She told me why Ethan had hidden his identity from me. Apparently, when he was 18, he had an accident. At the time, to celebrate him getting his driver's license, his older brother gave him the car he had always dreamed of as a gift. He was so excited, saying he would take his brother for a drive and make him the first person to sit in his passenger seat. However, they got into a car accident, and his brother died on the spot. I couldn't help but remember that night in the memorial hall when he told me he had lost someone very precious to him. It turned out to be his older brother. Ethan at that time suffered severe physical and psychological trauma. He completely broke down and stayed in a nursing home for a year. After he came out of the nursing home, he left this place. He once told me that this place was like hell to him. Every day he suffered, feeling like he couldn't breathe. He abandoned everything here, including his identity as the Shin family's young master. He cut off contact with all of us, no one could find him. I never thought he would contact me voluntarily someday. He said he needed my help to find someone. Sophia looked at me. "You know what happened next. He was willing to return to this hell for you. That's why I was angry when I saw you standing before him so nonchalantly that day." I asked, "So, you're not in love with him?" Sophia looked at the painting in front of her, which depicted a young man drifting among the stars. She replied, "The one I loved was his older brother." 15 Sophia still bought the painting. Before leaving, she said, "I've done my part. The rest is up to you too." I went to Ethan's home. He seemed to have shipped everything back from abroad. Freight company personnel came and went, and the formerly empty house had become much more crowded. He was in his studio, organizing his paintings. I watched his back for a while before speaking. "Didn't you say you'd be leaving soon and never coming back?" Hearing my voice, he froze, then turned and smiled at me. I've been back for a while now, and suddenly I feel like this place isn't so bad. I don't want to leave. My eyes stung with emotion. I walked over and hugged him. You idiot, Sophia came to see me. He gently embraced me and sighed. She told you everything? I wasn't deliberately trying to hide it from you back then, I just felt that the identity of Ethan no longer belonged to me. I held out my hand to him. Where's the ring? Give it back to me. Threw it away. Threw it away? Who told you to leave me? I was so furious at the time, I threw it into the sea. I'll buy you a better one. I was actually a little sad, I really liked that ring. I looked up at him. Does your offer to let me use you still stand? Yes. So, how do you plan to use me? I buried my face in his chest, my voice muffled. I want to bring down the family residence and send Robert to prison. But I can do all that myself, and I don't want to involve you in it. So I haven't decided yet. Can you wait for me to think it through? He understood that I didn't want him to interfere with Robert's affairs. All right, I'll wait for you, always. We held each other tight in the studio. We had been apart for so long that neither of us wanted to let go first. Not until the movers left and everything returned to silence. Did you hate me for leaving you back then? Yes, I hated you, but I missed you even more. I tried to hold back, but I realized if I kept holding back, I'd get sick. So I had to find you. Later, I found out you'd returned to the country and were going on blind dates. I was furious, so I asked Sophia to help me put on a show. I wanted to see if you still cared about me, if you'd give me a second glance now that I was Ethan, not just that poor artist. But I never expected you to act like you didn't know me. I was absolutely enraged that day. I tightened my grip on his hand. Silly, I had a reason for leaving you back then, and a reason for pretending not to know you too. I know. I found out everything over this time. That's why I regret it deeply. Why did I hesitate? Why didn't I come back sooner? The wind outside the window lifted the corner of a canvas, revealing Luna at 20 years old in the painting. The in the painting knew what happiness felt like, and her smile was radiant. Ethan lowered his head and kissed me. I had missed his soft, cool P.S. for so long. We embraced, kissed, and lost ourselves in each other in that studio. Luna and Ethan found their true selves in each other again. 16 Ethan kept his promise. He knew I had planned for a long time to personally finish off Robert, so he held back from taking action. The day Robert's company announced its bankruptcy, I retrieved all the evidence I had collected from my bank safe deposit box. Then I went to the hospital. Robert had actually already recovered, he was just pretending to still be ill to avoid the brewing storm outside. I turned on the television and made him watch the news. The news was broadcasting the collapse of Robert's company. This was the moment I had waited for, to make him watch helplessly as the empire he'd spent half his life building crumbled to dust. Without his company, he was nothing more than a useless dog. No one would ever lift a finger to help him again. Then I would send him to prison, and he would rot there forever. I threw the evidence in front of him, and he tore them into shreds in a fit of rage. I laughed at his foolishness. The originals had already been submitted to the police. I glanced at my watch. The police would be arriving soon. He picked up the nearby 4-stand and swung it at me. I dodged. The stand hit the television, and the screen froze, showing that Robert's company's main building was about to be auctioned off. I laughed at him. You're penniless again, just like when you first met my mom. Too bad this time, no heiress will fall for you. Oh, I forgot to tell you, your son is missing. He racked up massive gambling debts and got caught by his creditors. He might have been sold off to a remote international syndicate. Robert's face contorted in a way I'd never witnessed. You bitch, just like your mother. As he spoke, he lunged at me, trying to choke me. The police rushed in, pinned him to the ground, and slapped handcuffs on him. I decided to add an additional charge of abuse against him, using it to petition to sever our father-daughter relationship. Ethan had been waiting downstairs for me. When I saw him, a genuine smile spread across my face. From now on, this world would no longer be hell to me. 17 Ethan said that every step of the process must be followed. So he insisted on hosting a grand engagement party for us at the best hotel. It gave me a headache. I knew that after Robert's company collapsed, people in social circles had been gossiping about me privately. They said, just like an illegitimate child, inheriting the genes of a mistress. They said I had pushed out the daughter of the Yun family to marry into a wealthy family and was incredibly cunning. I didn't really care. Who were these people anyway? Some of them wouldn't even be in my life. I cherished this hard-won happiness and didn't want to waste any time or energy on them, but couldn't stand it. He said he wanted those people to see how happy we were and then shut up for good. To that end, he made a slideshow of photos we took while studying abroad. He said he wanted to play it at the banquet and also explain what had happened between him and Sophia. He thought of everything, even securing a top trending search topic. I was torn between laughter and exasperation. I was busy preparing for entrance exams lately, so I couldn't argue with him and just let him have his way. But he pushed his luck further, having designers send over gown after gown. He lifted me from my desk and made me try them on. He said, "The banquet is just a few days away, and your dress still hasn't been decided." I was so annoyed I wanted to sweat him. Suddenly, I remembered that when he first returned to the country, at his welcome banquet, he had publicly announced that I wasn't allowed to attend any of his family's events. I decided to tease him, so I said, "Didn't you say I wasn't allowed to attend any events hosted by your family? You announced it publicly. It wouldn't be good to go back on your word now." "I've decided to uphold your reputation and won't go." Ethan paused, then his voice tinged with hurt. "Once upon a time, someone left me with nothing but a sticky note that said he was just playing with me." I quickly hopped off him and walked to the row of gowns, casually running my hand over them. "Let me see which one I should wear." 18 I successfully got into the university I wanted, to study psychology, which I was passionate about. I was busy commuting daily between school, the gallery, and home. Ethan didn't inherit the family business, he had no interest in business. Ethan's father didn't push him. He felt it was already good enough that his son had returned to a normal life. He said he would entrust the company to professional managers in the future. Ethan, meanwhile, focused on preparing for his traveling art exhibition. We still loved to cuddle and chat, just like 3 years ago. After all, there were so many past experiences we wanted to share. Those dark and painful memories didn't seem like much anymore. But the joyful and happy ones kept us reminiscing. We would also talk about my mother and his brother. They were also part of our happy memories. Sometimes, when we missed them terribly, we would go visit them together. I would bring my mother's favorite sunflowers, and Ethan would bring his brother's favorite champagne. We would sit there and chat with them for a while. Those past events were no longer painful wounds we couldn't revisit. We had the ability to transform them into sources of happiness. He said his brother had protected him, and my mother had protected me. We had both received the same kind of love, and we would allow that love to continue. The moonlight was like silver. Looking at the full moon hanging in the night sky, I couldn't help but remember when Ethan and I lived in the basement apartment. Back then, there was a small window diagonally above the bed, and moonlight would spill onto the bed. Sometimes would be fast asleep, but I would still be awake, silently praying as I watched the bright moonlight. I would have traded living there forever for the peace I have now. Today, we no longer live in a basement apartment, but the unchanging moonlight is just as beautiful. Ethan came out after showering. Fearing I might catch a chill, he draped a robe over my shoulders, then embraced me from behind. "What are you looking at?" "The moon. What a beautiful moon tonight." Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.